right, everybody, it's Sunday night again. Can't believe it. Made it through a whole nother week. 1 week closer. Guess what? Kids can go back to school tomorrow.
Woo!
Walker, I talked to Walker today. He said he wasn't going back to school.
Yeah, he is. And look here, Todd Miles made the statement. He said, you know what? I'm going to start sending medical bills to the school board. We got a bunch of kids with bed sores from this online school.
So anyway, but yeah, y'all can head back to school this week. Things are kind of getting back somewhat normal, not completely normal, but we
Actually,
are
hold
back.
on, time out. I may let Walker not go tomorrow because I've got to preach in Simpsonville at a youth rally tomorrow night, and I think I'm leaving about lunch, and I'm going to make him go with me, so I ain't going by myself.
That's right. So you might get one more free day. But
one more free day, Walker.
Go to school tomorrow. Get off the couch for a change. Go to
That's
school,
right.
Have fun, meet your friends, hang out. But we back in week 3 of our series. We're talking about who are you. If you've missed the first 2 weeks, they're on Facebook, YouTube. You can go back and watch through. Hit the highlights, that kind of stuff.
That's right. And I made this statement Wednesday night. Back to this one. If you do yourself a favor and watch both of them.
That's right.
Not because of anything other than that. This Who Are You is almost the individual series to the corporate series that we're doing on Wednesday night. It's like Wednesday night we've been talking about cultural Christianity versus real Christianity.
Right.
But this is basically Who Are You is finding your spot inside the real Christianity.
Right.
So it's kind of like they go hand in hand together. So it wasn't planned that way.
Right.
It just kind of happened. And I'm like, ooh, this is cool the way this worked out.
That's right. So anyway, keep Wednesday nights in here or watch it online if you can't make it into service.
Right.
I know a lot of end of the school year. We closed down. We got sports. We got all that kind of stuff going on. So Wednesday nights are hard for a lot of kids. We understand that. You can watch them back online.
That's
or
right.
watch them, or watch them from your car or whatever you can. But
in between innings.
That's right. That's right. Some of y'all sit at the bench. I know some of y'all play.
That's right.
So watch it on the bench. But
you can watch the whole church service.
But no, just kidding. But anyway, check with us. Be on social media. Neil sent out again today the questions earlier today. I saw him go out, and we didn't get any responses yet. But
nope.
I know we get them kind of as we go as well too. But make sure you're checking social media. We got a lot of big things coming up. I know we canceling. We're not going to Winterfest. We're not doing church camp this year, but we're going to have a few things going on in the church.
Yep.
We were just talking about something that's coming your way. Hopefully we'll have some information on it. It's going to be a pretty big deal. So we're going to have 2 or 3 things coming in the next couple months, couple weeks that'll start coming out and getting everything ready. You should be excited about. So, but we're not going to hold your hand and do it. You got to watch social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
That's right.
Snapchat, whatever, you'll see it on there. But stick with us. We're going through all that kind of stuff. But here we are, week 3 of Who Are You? And this is, like I said, 100,000 times we've done these for a year now. This is a story that everybody's heard.
Absolutely.
And it's a story you've heard in multiple settings. It's a story I've heard 100 different angles talking about the story of who did this and who did that.
Absolutely.
But going back to what Neil was talking about the corporate Christianity and the culture Christianity of the cool series that he's doing on Wednesday night, this story really fits into that, where it's culture Christianity is driving us to do things certain ways.
Right.
But the application tonight is time with Jesus changes our perspective of others, and we begin to see them the way that God sees them. When you spend time with God and you draw closer to God, you see things differently. Not only yourself and the way you handle things, you start to see other people different. Some people that you may not like beforehand, you start to see the good in them.
Right.
And you start to like them, or people that you would never think you would hang out with,
That's
or
right.
never think you would be hanging around.
Yep.
And really for no reason other than just maybe what you've heard about them or anything like that. And then
or the social clique at school.
That's right. So you start hanging out with, getting drawn close to Jesus and finding out who you are in Jesus. And that draws you closer to people that may be on the same wavelength that you are, that you didn't even know.
That's right.
And people that you think, man, they may be completely different than me, may be closer to you than you think. But the questions that Neil sent out today, you can answer them as we go. Can you remember a time you hadn't seen a friend in a long time, and when you saw them again, they looked different? What helped create such a change in them? I know a lot of people, especially as you become parents and stuff, your kids, they grow like crazy, and then you see them every day. You see your child every day. It's,
right.
If they grow a quarter of an inch or a half inch over a 6-month period, it doesn't even look like they've hardly grown because you've seen them every day, and it changes little. But say you have relatives that live off somewhere or something, and you maybe only see them around the holidays or something, and every year they're like, oh, you must have grown 2 feet, but this is the last time I saw you.
In fact, that actually happened to me at Christmas. That you've grown 2 feet, but it wasn't this way. I was like, what in the world?
That's right. But so the changes that you see in somebody over a long period of time,
right,
are way more noticeable if you haven't been around that person
in
a long time. So can you remember a time you hadn't seen a friend in a long time, and when you saw them again, they looked different, and what happened to create such a change in them? The story that we're talking about, and like I said, we've heard 100 times, and anyway, is the story of the Good Samaritan. in Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. So I'm going to read that through for those that aren't in it. But starting out in Luke chapter 10, verse 25, it says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied. How do you read it? He answered. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? And in reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite. When he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, and look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus told him, go and do likewise. So in the story, we've heard, like I said, we've heard it on multiple occasions. It's been talked about 100 different ways, and you can do it. But as we kind of relate it to today's time and what we're going through in the cultural Christianity series on Wednesday nights, and who are you on this series on Sunday nights? You can really sit down and ask yourself, who am I towards my neighbors? Who am I towards those people? But
right.
The Samaritan, as the story has it, the priest came by. And everybody knows who the priest is. They're the head of the church.
Senior pastor. So
Al walked by and passed on the other side. Not necessarily Al would do that, but that's basically how it does. Pastor Al, or whoever is the head of your church. If you don't go to Bethesda, whoever the senior pastor is at your church, that's who the priest was at that time. They were the head of the church, and in most of these little towns, from what I understand, back then there was like one big church.
Right.
So the priest of that church was
the
head of all church. There wasn't. Sumter County didn't have 100,000 churches in a 2-mile radius like we do. There was one church for Sumter, and so everybody, the priest, would have been somebody that was high and powerful, that was over all those. So supposedly, probably a pretty good man, or a pretty good Christian example of at the time. So anyway, and a Levite. That would be like if Neil passed by. No,
that is what it was. That's the support staff, the music. Right. Let's say the music pastor.
Music pastor.
It's Julia.
That was Julia,
or either the children's pastor.
Becky. That was Julia or Becky. That's right. No, but so that was like the support staff of the church, and the people that were basically under the priest at the time. So they still had roles in the church. So if someone you would think would know the Bible and know who they're supposed to help and know who they love and that kind of stuff, but at the same time, a Samaritan passed by, and not only would that's not even like what you say, okay, the next logical thing would be somebody that goes to church. The Samaritan was basically the enemy of the church.
Yes.
It would be somebody that didn't like the church, that didn't want to have nothing to do with the church.
To equate that today, he would have had on a mask that said Samaritan lives matter.
That's right.
That's the mask he'd had on.
That's right.
That's the equivalent of what this was. This was far beyond any racial tension that we see now, that we've experienced here. This was way beyond that.
That's right.
They spit on each other, and it's so bad there. It's still today with them.
That's right.
So which kind of still is with us,
That's right.
But at least we're working through some of ours.
That's right.
It is still this adamant today.
That's right.
They shoot you because you're whatever.
That's right.
It's just that's the extent of this hatred.
That's right. So, as we go through, as we're looking and we're trying to find ourselves, who are we? Who are we in Christ?
Right.
These are basically the 3 examples. Are we somebody that's in the church? Are we a Christian person? Will we walk by on the other side? And we've heard this, like I said, you can look up all kinds of messages on the Good Samaritan, and you can find different takes on who this person was in today's time and that kind of stuff. But trying to equate it back to like a youth service or youth age people. And we talk a lot about this, about having groups in school and who's cool and who's not cool.
Right.
What group do you fit in?
Right.
You're trying to find yourself. And But basically, as you draw near to Jesus and you start to see the changes in people, or you see people the way Jesus saw people, that's what the Samaritan did.
That's right.
He saw the man as Jesus saw the man. Whether or
Yeah.
not he thought that at the time, we don't know. But
something made him stop.
Right. As you grow close to Jesus, you see people that, man, I wouldn't hang out with that person if you paid me to hang out with them. Well, as you grow closer to Jesus, as you draw closer to Jesus, you start to see people different.
Absolutely.
You start to say, you know what, that person's not as bad as I thought they were. Or that person's, may not be in my friend group, but man, I would go out of my way to help them out if I could, that kind of thing. So as we go through today's time, it's definitely, it's hard. It's hard
Very.
to be in high school, especially since we're just now starting back to school. Like I said, we're just, where you can go back to school, at least if some of you may not even be going back, for different reasons, and that's fine too. But as you're going through school, you're gonna quickly develop back into the friend groups that either you had or that maybe some people left and went on.
Doing youth ministry for over 20 years, and then athletics in Sumter County for about 10 years. I've had 30 plus years of just working with youth from a secular world and a spiritual world. One thing I have noticed and seen is that in both environments, which is completely different, the athlete will find the athlete, the band members will find the band members, right. The Star Wars people will find the Star Wars people. It's a gravitational pull that's by nature. It works like that. They just tend to find that. I can't, for the life of me, in reading this, figure out what was the pull here. What makes a Samaritan stop when the pull should have been to the priest and to the Levite, right. But it wasn't. And so, I've heard it said this way. Man, I'm glad everybody don't act like church people. Yeah. And not knocking the church, but there's two church folk that were too busy. In fact, one says that were they in a hurry to get to the synagogue? Were they in such a hurry to get to church that they overlooked the need? I remember there was years back, there was this video that was going around of a pastor of a huge church had made himself to appear homeless and was sitting outside the church. And it was people after people after people walking by and like, ooh, whatever. And they go in and they're worshiping in. There were thousands in this place. And then all of a sudden, the pastor's got his little mic on, his little headset. He starts walking down the aisle with that grocery cart that was out in the parking lot. And he said, every one of you passed me by. And you're like, ouch. I don't know what the pull was here, but this was almost like people were in a hurry. But we've created, who are you? We've created people that are so dead set on what am I going to get that we overlook the fact that here's an enemy that stopped to be Jesus to somebody. And I do think the church world, we get a little, my grandmama used to say, we so heavenly minded, we ain't no earthly good. All we think about is Jesus. And that, I don't want that to be misunderstood, but it's, Jesus got it, we don't even see what's going on. Right. So the whole world's in trouble. We're not doing anything to help because all we worried about is us just getting to heaven.
That's right.
And I don't know what went through here, but I know it kind of hurts my feelings, to be honest with you. First of all, as a Christian. Second of all, as a staff member of the church, right. To know that, wow, man, my group, my social group didn't get it. And kids are ruthless.
Oh, yeah.
But what I've found with a lot of those is they'll fuss and fight, and then 2 weeks later, they're best friends again.
Yeah.
And I watched groups pulled up last night, and you look at what was in the parking lot playing kickball, wiffle ball, whatever. I love it. There's life at a church at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. It was great. Right. But you look, and I'm thinking, there's a bunch of different kids standing here. Yeah. They come from different economic houses. Why? Because I know some of them's daddy. They ain't the same class that mine was that was out here with him.
That's right.
We in two totally different tax brackets.
I promise. I guarantee.
But I'm watching them. They were having a good time. And at that point, it didn't matter.
That's right.
If we as adults could grab a hold of the fact of it doesn't matter. Eric serves Jesus. I serve Jesus. Jimmy serves Jesus. You got different issues I got, and I've got different issues than Jimmy's got. We got different likes.
That's right.
But in all honesty, y'all two are the best friends I got on the planet. But we are different.
That's right.
We're very different. And we don't celebrate a lot of times those differences. Instead of celebrating, we point them out. I'm glad this didn't happen with the Samaritan and this guy, or we wouldn't even have this story.
That's right.
Because that difference, I can't imagine what ridicule he was going to catch from his friends.
Oh, I'm sure.
You stopped and helped him, but that ain't in our group, man.
That's right.
You know.
And I think when we've talked about this for the last little bit, we've been doing this and kind of hit on it in different series, and it seems to always come back to the same thing. Is a lot of times we do church rather than doing Jesus.
Oh yeah, that's good.
We get in that mode where, like you said, I got to be at church. I got to be at church. I got to do this. I got to serve the church. I'm serving on this committee, and I'm doing this committee,
Right.
and I'm doing this outreach, and I'm teaching Sunday school, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that. But yeah, what are you doing outside of church? You know, what are you doing for people outside of church? What
Right.
are you doing for the people that are different than you are?
Right.
It's easy to come into church and serve. Sometimes it's easy to. I don't want to say it's easy because it is time consuming. There's a lot of work that goes into it.
Right.
But it's easier to serve in the church when everybody else is on the same page.
That's right.
When you're in
Absolutely.
when you're in the church, maybe as you scatter, everybody's different.
Right.
But when you're in a Sunday school class, or when you're you know, in whatever disciple class or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
small group, life group, whatever we're calling it today, whatever group you're in, it's easy to say, I can serve this group, or I can serve the church in this capacity.
Right.
Because everybody's had. How do you do when you walk past the when you're the, you know, you're the Samaritan, or you're the outsider that's walking past somebody in need? You can serve the people in your small group that
That's
need you,
right.
because you know they're on the same
Yeah.
wavelength that you are. How hard
Right.
is it to serve somebody that's outside of your group?
You're right.
That's outside of your political affiliation. That's outside of your racial affiliation, or outside of your socioeconomic. We talk
Right.
about, you know, we talk about race a lot. We talk about politics, but I think the biggest thing that separates people in the group now is your economic status, or your socioeconomic
I
status.
agree with
where
that.
it's, you know, that it literally is sometimes the haves versus the have-nots, and we migrate into those groups, and we or it's easy to you know, these kids that were up here last night. It's easy to hang out with those kids. They're all in kind of in a group. They're all different. They all come from different backgrounds, but they're in kind of the same kind of group. But how
Right.
do they feel with somebody else coming in from outside?
Right.
You know, and then that's where it gets tough, and that's where you got to really notice who are you in Christ. How close can you draw to
Right.
Christ to see the differences in people, that you see them?
I've seen different departments within the church can't get along together.
Absolutely. Some of these, you know, which, you know, some churches don't have all these different things, but I grew up in a church where we had 4,000, it seemed like, Sunday school classes.
Yes.
And it was a status symbol if you were in so-and-so's class.
Yes.
You went to so-and-so's
That's right.
Sunday school class, and it was almost like you went to this person's class, he had 100
Ooh,
people,
yeah.
and you went to this person's class and they had 75 people. Well, those 75 people didn't like that 100 because they were too pretentious, because they were in the big Sunday school
Yeah.
class, and this was the smaller thing. I mean, it's ridiculous that we fight and bicker among each other in the church, much less going out and helping anybody outside the
Right.
church.
That's right.
And we get caught up in this churchy thing where, well, I'm going to church, that's good enough. But no, Jesus is telling you right here, you should serve people outside of the church.
Right. Yep.
Was the priest and the Levite, were they, you know, they were probably good Christian people going to heaven,
That's right.
you know, but they didn't do what they should have done outside. They let
Right.
the Samaritan have to do it.
Right. And you know, this just hit me too. This wasn't necessarily a sin.
That's
I mean,
right.
it wasn't a sin that they didn't stop, but it was just missing the whole point and principle of serving.
That's right.
You know, and I'll be honest. I'm gonna throw it out there tonight. I feel that way. There's a ton of people who will doing certain things within a church, but they don't want to do the other thing because, no, I'm not going to get the status with that work.
That's right.
Like, if you knew what it took just to make a Wednesday night church service happen in here for teenagers. First of all, we got little spray jugs that we have to sanitize everything, so COVID's added to that workload.
That's right.
But I mean, it's all the way back to finding the ping pong paddles, which sometimes can turn into a 30-minute job. You know, making sure they're on the table with the ball there, making sure the Jenga's put back like it's supposed to be, making sure that the checkerboard's out, making sure there's a ball on the foosball table and I don't have to find it over in the corner over here behind it because somebody's thrown it. That the air hockey table's working, there's nothing spilled on it. You know, you're wiping it down with the Windex so that the airs are open. So making sure that all the pool balls are there, making sure that the tables are put back because we've got kids that'll sit at those tables, making sure the right chairs are there because, see, this don't look big to anybody else who uses it, but if one kid, I want the red chair, no, I want the wood chair, and now they fighting over chairs. So same kind of chairs at the table, so there's no room for whatever. That the goals are pushed out, the atmosphere is set, that the music's playing, that make sure that both screens are working, make sure the doors are unlocked, make sure the hut's open, make sure it's stocked, all that just for an hour.
That's right.
And then when it's done, you got to make sure you see what I'm saying? And all that. That's just in this room. That's one department. So imagine what it takes for a Sunday morning church service. All the way down to, is there toilet paper in each toilet paper roll in the bathroom? Or we don't have a mask up here, or we don't have da-da-da-da. In all honesty, to make a church service work around here, you need 20 to 30 people.
That's right.
Picking up the trash, making sure that it looks, but there's a ton of people that don't want to do those kind of jobs. That's right. They want the job, can I just, let me be the one that totes the pastor's Bible to the pulpit because the whole congregation will see me serving. And, you know, they do that. One leadership conference that I went to called it the Preacher's Posse. Yeah. Every preacher has one. It's a little posse that just basically, if the preacher stops, they bump into him. That's right. And they do, that kind of thing. So you got a lot of that. But the big thing is, that, in fact, there's guys in here that made it dummy proof for me. We got little pieces of tape on the floor to know where the chairs even go. So that they're separated enough for COVID. There's just a whole lot that takes involved. So, it almost makes you wonder, and I don't know this, I'm just reading this into it from my personal perspective, is did the priest and the Levite, were they like, oh, no, we got to get to the church to serve the pastor. That's right. Or to serve the people. I don't have time to deal with you. Well, as you did to the least of these, what if that was Jesus? That's right. Out there? That Samaritan's the one that got that blessing. And what gets me is on one occasion an expert in the law stood to test Jesus. Yeah. First of all, don't ever step to Jesus. Oh, no. That ain't the one to flex to right there. Right. Expert in the law? Dude, I don't know who told you was an expert. That's right. But the first thing he didn't tell you is you don't mess with the master. That's that kind of thing. So that's who he steps with. Then he says it's written in the law. There's sometimes laws are there, but there's always an exception for something. That's right. Always. I shouldn't, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And there's things that's cut and dry, that's black and white. But to me, it's about Jesus and love, and that's it. Everything else is law. It is written in the law. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind. There's not room for error right there. That's everything about who we are wrapped up in what we should do. Who robbed him? It could have been a Samaritan that robbed him. Yeah. They were the enemies. I don't know. It doesn't say. I just know there's sometimes we get so wrapped up into our stuff, that we miss the point of ministry. Yeah. We miss the point of serving. We miss the point of loving. And not only that, this guy went above and beyond. The verb phrase came to where he was. He had compassion. He went to him, bound up his wounds, poured oil and wine on him, set him on his own animal, brought him got him a hotel room, right. Took care of him, then gave money, and then come back and said he would pay all the expenses. Now, that's a whole nother level right there. That's right. Because we got people that'll serve, but when it comes to putting their money where their mouth is, Yeah,
and sometimes it's not even about the money. Or time. Like you said, you go through this thing, and it everybody knows if you've spent 2 minutes in church that you're supposed to love Jesus, and you're supposed to serve Jesus. Everybody knows that, but it's very quick. If you'll notice, he was very quick to answer to reply to love your neighbor as yourself. Right. Sometimes that's the one we miss. Yep. We're so busy serving Jesus and trying to love Jesus that we forget that it was just as important to love your neighbor. That's right. Jesus didn't give a parable about, or a story about loving Jesus. He gave a parable about loving somebody else. Absolutely. And so if you don't think that was important, then you're missing the whole point of the story, because yes, the most important thing is to love love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. So it's not like a whole, couple days later it says, oh, by the way, after you get done loving Jesus with all your heart and soul and your mind, then make sure after you've completed that task, then do this task.
Then go do
it's
that.
in the
That's
same sentence, the same verse to say love your neighbor as yourself. And I don't think that's by coincidence that he goes on and tells a story of loving your neighbor.
Right.
So, I mean, as we search, as we finding out who are you, as we're finding that out, as we're finding out through the series on Wednesday night, cultural Christianity of who is cool and who is not cool and that kind of thing. Jesus is telling you who's cool. It's everybody.
Right.
It's your neighbor. And how do you define a neighbor? He defines a neighbor. He basically defines the neighbor in the story as the enemy, as your enemy. It's not.
That's
hey,
good. That's right.
The person that you go to school with, that you've been friends with your whole life.
Right.
Yes, that's your neighbor. But it's not the people that you may be working with or acquaintances with or that kind of stuff. Yes, those are your neighbors too. But it's also the enemy, because he tells you who was the neighbor in this story was the enemy of each other. So I think we forget that sometimes, and we get in that mode where it's easy to be friends with, and it's easy to hang out with people that have the same life. It's easy for the band, like you said, it's easy for the band people to hang out with the band people.
Yep.
You already have a common.
Right.
It's easy for the athletes to hang out with the athletes. You already have a common ground to start on.
Right.
It's easy for Christians to hang out with other Christians. It's you have a common goal. But if you go back and you read the book, or you read the Bible on Jesus' life, he didn't hang out with other Jesus.
No.
He didn't. I mean, if we were in today's time, it would be the same thing. Jesus would be expected to hang out with
that's right,
the international missions director and the Dr. Tim Hill and those people that are in high leadership positions. Not that they're doing what they're called to be doing. I'm saying that's who you would expect Jesus to hang out with.
And that's not where he was.
You would expect Jesus to roll up in the international office in Cleveland every day, but he was out in the streets on the boulevard.
Something else that just jumped out at me here, the extent. When does that end? Okay, I've helped him, I'm done. He come back to pay all the extra expense. Mm-hmm. That's later. A lot of times when we help somebody, or even let's just take it to the salvation route, because this is one of my pet peeves with the church. Yeah. We're pretty good at getting into communities here. We're pretty good with relationships. We're pretty good with those. We're pretty good even with the evangelistic part. And we do good, but we're so glad you accepted Christ. God bless you. And we're gone. And nobody, in here, it doesn't say how long it was. It just says he comes back later to pay back. Wow. His extent and care didn't stop with that moment of when he goes, okay, I did my part.
I can tell you back then, it wasn't like, I'll come back later, let me go work from 8 to 5, and as I come
swing back by.
I'll come back. No, when you did things, journeys, when you were going somewhere else or going to another city or going about your business, it wasn't like, let me run across town real quick and I'll pay the man what the money I owe. No, it was probably days or weeks later that he actually came back or came back through, and it may have been months later. We don't know for sure, but the continual care of the Samaritan went upon his business. He understood that both his business and God's sacrifice too must, show an act of mercy.
Right.
But he saw someone in need, decided to stop, tend to him, even leave more money to see that the injured man's continual care was met. The Samaritan paused his own schedule and put the needs of another above his own. Continual care. That's like you said. Hey, we're good at getting you to the altar.
Right. That's right.
Or I say we're good at it. That we're okay in that department. Getting you to the altar is fine. Continual care is something and it says here where we're talking about just the straight out the point. It says when time with Jesus changes our perspective of others, and when we begin to see them the way that God sees them. When you see somebody how God sees them, you continue that care for that person.
Right.
Whether it's being their friend or being there for them or helping them out with this or helping them out with that. And it's not all about leaving money and helping them with money.
That's right.
I don't have any money. I can barely take care of myself. How am I supposed to take care of somebody else?
Right.
No, there's more to it than just giving money.
That's right.
Time and all that stuff and that kind of thing. Being there for them when they need somebody. Sometimes people would rather have somebody there than all the money in the world. When something bad's happened, people don't want money. When you lose a loved one, money doesn't bring them back.
That's right.
But somebody there for you can be that person.
That's
can
right.
be somebody that you can have. And as you go through school, and as we starting back to school and kind of getting in this new routine, look for those people that need help.
Yeah.
Look for, and sometimes it's easy to see, and sometimes it's hard to see.
That's right. I think we get so busy and stuff, we don't pay attention. I know I don't. I'm just going to be honest. I know I don't. I'm so busy even with church work sometimes that I miss the work from the church, meaning I got, guy that we were very good friends in college. He pastors a mega church now too, Ron Carpenter Jr. And we pick at him sometimes, and we've had this conversation about, man, I guess now to be a preacher, it's not about a calling, it's about a tight T-shirt, a fit body, the suntan, the right haircut, and the right sneakers, that kind of thing. And you look at those, and I think, wow, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking that at all. In fact, I've been blessed with some nice sneakers, but it's we miss some of it. But I think we get wrapped up and we get caught up into what a stereotype of what it is. And you look at some people and you're like, they don't need help. They've got everything they need. That may be the very one who needs the most help. Because we look at someone, you mentioned it earlier, the economic class that some of them are in, and you look and you're like, oh, they're fine. They're doing great. Yeah. Maybe not so much. And we overlook some of that because we have an idea of what the hurting and downcast and downtrodden should look like, and we've made this a physical thing when that's not it.
That's right.
It's the inside. Some of those that look like they're completely put together, the ones on the inside are tore slap up.
Well, how many times as a youth pastor, I know you've come across it, and not to put you on the spot here, but how many times have you seen, especially young people, and as it's getting worse as things go on, you see young people that commit suicide. What's the first thing you always hear? I would have never thought they would have done that.
That's exactly right.
I would have never thought they would have done that. They had it all together. They were the high school superstar. They were the cool kid in class, and they were the funny kid, and everybody loved being around them. I would have never thought that happened.
In fact, let me share real quick. I've shared this one time before, but I feel real impressed to share it right now because I'll be honest with you. There's some that have been in this room in the last couple of years who've had the spirit of suicide, and we've had to deal with it. Thank the Lord we have not had a funeral yet, but I looked at one not long ago. I said, I thought you said you loved me. And she said, yeah, it was the only thing I knew to say at the time. I said, then don't do that to me because I love you too much to have to stand over your casket and talk about you. Yeah. I'd rather talk about you to your face, okay? That's right. That kind of thing. But I'll never forget Roger Arnold, Mr. South Carolina, 0% body fat. I don't know what I'd have done to be able to look like that. Yeah. I'm not going to eat a 4-ounce chicken. No, I ain't going to eat a 4-ounce chicken breast and 6 ounces of plain white rice with no barbecue sauce, no salt, no pepper, no hot sauce, no nothing, just plain. I'm not going to eat that to look like that. And he'd do that 6 times a day. Right. But to look like that. And it was a Sunday night. We lived in the house right beside the church. He was over at our house. Me and him had been wrestling in the floor. We had a wrestling pay-per-view on. I got all the wrestling pay-per-views. And then all the kids stayed at my house all the time. We had wrestled and cut up and played. And I mean, when a man can bench press over 500 pounds, I'm just saying I really wasn't a threat when it come to wrestling. But we had wrestled that night. And let me back up a little bit. I had the opportunity to lead him to the Lord. He accepted Christ sitting at a restaurant with me. And so he had fast become my prayer partner, which kind of in return held him accountable. So he would call me every day. He'd be like, what's up, man? I go, what can I pray for you today with? Every time I called him, he said, there's 3 numbers. You call each one of them. I'm going to answer one of them. So remember that. So he's at my house that Saturday night, or that Sunday night. We wrestled. He kissed me on my forehead and said, I love you, boy. Hit me, and he was gone. Laughing, cutting up, playing. Monday, no phone call. Doesn't answer those numbers. His mother-in-law called the church and told us, and the pastor and I went flying to his apartment and had a key. opened his apartment. When I saw down the hallway, I saw what had happened in his room. And it was one of those, oh my God. And I'm not going to lie, I had to go to counseling from something. And it was just simply about, how did I miss it? But it was the same exact thing. How did this guy go from wrestling, playing, laughing, snorting laughing, drink coming out of his nose on Saturday night to no life before lunch on Monday? Yeah. Where in there did I miss something? And it's one of those that almost this way, we look and say, oh, they're fine. Yeah. I love a sermon that I heard from Chris Hill, one of my favorite preachers. Chris Hill was talking about Jesus' life and Jesus' walk and Jesus' ministry. He got to Zacchaeus, he saw him. He got to the woman at the well, he saw her. It's like everything that Jesus did was he saw them. There was that personal eye-to-eye contact to say whatever. We've been told that eyes are the window to the soul. You can tell me all day long from a text message, from Facebook, I'm fine. But when I look at you and I'm like, you're not fine. And we miss that sometimes. And I maybe this was it. Maybe the priest and the Levite were like, oh, he'll be okay. That kind of thing. And the Samaritan's like, no, man, something's really wrong here.
That's right.
And
but
this is why he ripped.
The same thing when he came to where he was and when he saw him.
Yes. Yeah. We miss some of that. And you know what? In all seriousness, you just mentioned this just a while ago. Love your neighbor as yourself. I think that's one of the biggest struggles with teenagers. Yeah. It's not the fact of loving their neighbor. They don't love themselves because we've allowed the culture of Christianity to tell them they're supposed to look this way, talk this way, go this way, this way. I love this quote that I found. It says, allow space for people to be human and grace for them to be sinners.
That's right.
They're going to mess up. They're teenagers. That's what happens. They're going to mess up. We're too quick to give them a final sentence. We're too quick to say, oh, you know, whatever. And I pick at some of them mercifully. I do. I give it back. But anyway, I think sometimes we miss the fact of it's real. Everybody's going to have issues. I got them.
Yeah.
I got them.
Well, you want to talk about being open. I wasn't a teenager. I was 20. Let's see, how old am I? 38 now. So I was 39 now, 24 years old. And I had a child, not married, outside of that, and people told me then, well, you can hang up ever doing anything for Jesus.
Sheesh.
And I told myself that.
Sheesh.
I allowed myself to think that. And for years, and I look back on it now, and I think of all the years I wasted because I felt like Jesus had called me to do something, but I made mistakes. And
dang, so Eric, I didn't know that.
That was the end of that thing. But here I am at 39 years old, and I can look back and say, had I not done that, what could I have accomplished? Had I taken things, and I still struggle with that. I still will come to you and say, hey, I think we ought to do this, and then never follow up with it because I think, nobody's going to pay attention to me. Nobody's going to pay attention to somebody that made. How can I get here and tell these kids, hey, don't do that. I did the same thing. No. Take from that experience. How can you've dealt with the same thing. How can you get up here and say,
right,
don't get involved in drugs and don't get involved in this.
No one else the biggest pothead Sumter County had.
That's right. And I mean, I'm not calling you out on anything that we haven't said on this before, but I'm saying, how can you get up there and do that when you made the same mistake? How can I get up here and tell these kids that when I made the same mistake? But I can look, as I grew within Jesus, it changed my perspective of how I see other people.
Right.
And I don't see other people as saying, well, I can't reach them because I made that same mistake.
You know what?
I can say, I can reach you because I know what you're thinking.
And that's almost what here's again, me, I'm going to read something into this. Maybe it's a little taking my liberty, but I don't care because what qualifies me to say that? The fact that you've been there.
Yeah.
What qualifies me to say don't do pot? I've been there. What qualifies you to tell me stay off of drugs? I've been there. What qualifies you to tell me to not have kids out of wedlock? I've been there. And while you and I struggle with the issue about, I'm not worthy enough to do this. You know what? Maybe the priest and the Levite had never been robbed. How did the Samaritan know what to do?
Yeah.
I mean, he was a Samaritan. It doesn't say nothing about him being a first responder. It don't say nothing about him being a medical person. It don't say nothing about him being employed by a church. But he knew exactly what to do. He knew everything and what to do. It almost makes you think he's been there before, or he's seen that before, or he's watched that been done before. He knew how to serve. It wasn't about just serving, because you got something to say, look, I don't know what I can do, but how can I help? This wasn't him. He goes, okay, here's what I got to do. I got to bandage the wounds. I got to pour the oil and the wine on there. I got to put this man on my donkey. I got to bring him to an inn. I got to take care of him. I got to pay for this or whatever. He knew what to do.
And it almost makes you feel like, as we're talking, it almost makes you feel like maybe he had been robbed before and beaten and left, and there somebody came along and helped him.
Right.
Maybe someone that was his enemy came along and helped him.
Yeah, that's good.
As we go through this, and as we talk about what it's when our perspective of others change because we have spent time beholding God. It's similar to how an experienced art historian or restorer can often identify the creator by considering overlooked details in the piece. This is the more the observers familiarize themselves with other pieces by the maker, it's easier to become for them to see the similarities between one and the other. Okay, I gotta admit again, I told y'all before, I watch all kinds of crazy stuff on TV, on Netflix and that. Not like crazy, like weirdo. I'm talking about just stuff that y'all would probably have no idea. Like if I tell you what I'm about to tell you, you're gonna say, "What? How did you even get there?" And I don't even know how I got there. I saw it on something. But it talked about it was an artist, an art gallery got robbed in Boston in like 1990 during St. Patrick's Day parade. They stole a bunch of these famous paintings or whatever, and it's this documentary on how the people got in. And anyway, it's boring, and y'all don't watch it. You waste your time. But I liked it and enjoyed it. But they were talking about how these like once in a lifetime art pieces got stolen, and how they they identified them through. And then they go and they can find the fakes, and there's all these fakes, and they try to find the originals, whatever. But they can tell which one was the original once they got because once it got stolen, people tried to sell fakes of it, that it was the real thing and this and that. But this is what he's talking about. They can tell you. The artists frequently add tiny details, portray details similar despite different situations, using the same kind of materials, the same media, and that kind of stuff. But they can tell, okay, this artist painted this picture because in his pictures, no matter what the picture was, he always made this kind of mark or always made this kind of mark. So they could tell which ones are fake and which ones are real. Anyway, that's my crazy documentary.
It's funny because I found that lady right there.
But that's the thing. It's like this woman, Clara Peters.
Yes.
She's famous for hiding her own self-portraits in her oil paintings of still lives. And so that is crazy. And then there was always, I don't even remember which one it was because I don't know art. I don't know why I was even watching the thing on art. But I don't know nothing about. I can't even like draw a stick man and it be proportional. So anyway, that's my weird obsession with stuff. But that's the thing. Like every artist had their own mark. And
right.
As they became these paintings, you see these paintings and they're like, oh, they stole 12 paintings. It was $500 million worth of art. And I'm like, how in the world is like 12 paintings worth, that kind of money? And but they had all this stuff, and it was like, they can think. But it goes on to say here, in the same way, we begin to see God's fingerprints on those around us. Despite their quirks, differences from us, causing us to be more loving and graceful, we literally see the Creator within the creation. And that's where, as you draw close to God, as you continue to find out who you are and who these kind of things are, you notice things about people that are, you can see God in these people. And,
right.
and I like to think that's what the Samaritan saw. Now, like you said, it doesn't say that. It says he was a Samaritan. He was an enemy of the person.
That's right.
But it doesn't say he doesn't say he wasn't a Christian or he wasn't a church-going person. He may have been a church-going person, even though, and as we get this.
We know he had a conscience.
That's right. So as we go through this and you say, well, how does that make any sense in our life? We can be Christians and be different political parties. We can be Christians and be different races.
Right.
So, and even if we say, well, the Republican is the enemy of the Democrat, I can be a Christian Republican and you can be a Christian Democrat, and we can still be friends.
Absolutely.
Even though the culture says we're enemies.
Right.
He saw something in the man that had been beaten that maybe he had drawn close to God, and maybe he saw God's creation
Right.
and knew to stop.
In
Maybe
fact,
he
let me
didn't,
one thing that has bothered me, and I've been trying to figure out how to say this, and you just set me up perfect. I heard some people and read some comments of people said, if you voted Democrat, you are not a Christian.
Yeah.
You have never heard that come out of my mouth. You will never hear that come out of my mouth. You know, I disagree with that 100%. I think because that means I'm not a Christian.
That's right.
Because I'm just going to go ahead and tell you flat out, in our local elections right here, I voted for Anthony Dennis as our sheriff. He's a Democrat. I voted for Thomas McElveen. He's a Democrat.
That's right.
So does that mean I'm not a Christian because I voted Democrat right there? Oh, no, we didn't mean, and this is what was told to me. Oh, no, we didn't mean like that on the local. We were talking about the president. Yeah. You said, that kind of thing. So you better be very, very careful when you start saying that. Like you just said, you can vote Democrat, Republican, whatever. We can still be friends. We can both still be a Christian.
That's right.
So.
And you can break it down to your level. You can go to Crestwood and still be a Christian.
That's right.
We watched Wilson Hall and LMA play baseball.
That's right.
Night, and it got chirpy, and
it sure did.
It got everybody was kind of getting into it. But at the end of the game, they were mostly all friends.
Exactly.
They all know each other.
And that's one thing. The biggest problem with that whole rivalry, and I'm going to say this if you watch it, it's the adults.
Yeah,
the parents are the big problem.
That's
it's
right.
not the kids.
That's
they
right.
mouthing off with each other and cutting up. And I mean, they talking smack now. They talk smack like crazy. But what y'all parents may not be understanding is them same kids are on the Xbox with each other at home.
Yeah. Or there was half of them out here
half
last
of them
night.
out here last night. You know what? Some of them that was running their mouth to each other on the ball field the other night are the ones out here playing kickball together. I mean, come on, man. It's the adults that get involved in like, oh, you better watch your mouth, and they fussing, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, you know what? These kids, they're going to be best friends. They going to each other's proms,
That's
man.
right.
Come on.
So it's and I think that's what. And that's a worldly perspective as they grow in a worldly perspective, they see each other for who they are.
Right.
They don't see. I mean, in the moment when they're playing each other, they see them as the rivalry.
Absolutely.
And
they should.
And they should, because that's what it takes to be a good ball player. But after the time, they know better. They know enough to say that person is not my enemy, even though he goes to a different school.
That's exactly right.
And I think we can learn a lot from that and say, you know what, that person is not my enemy because they're an athlete and I'm in the band.
Right.
That person's not my enemy because they're in the drama club and I'm way too cool to go up there and act cool on something.
Right.
Or they're in the singing club and I can't sing a lick, or
Yeah.
they're in the art club and I sure can't draw, even though I watch stupid stuff on TV about it. But that's the thing. It's like we can be different. We can have differences. We can be different people and still be Christians and still love each other. I mean, I don't even know. I can't even count how many times it's been said on these Sunday night programs that it's all about love.
Absolutely.
It's all about who you love.
It's
all about, and as you draw close to God, and as you finding out who you are and what role you fit in the cool corporate cultural Christianity that we're going through on Wednesday nights, as you find yourself in these situations, you find out that all it takes is loving somebody sometimes.
That's right.
And we talked about it tonight. We got a little deep tonight on some things, and it says, we don't know what people are going through.
No.
And we don't know what
We
don't know what their situation is, but it doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, black, white, Latino, whatever.
Right.
And you live in the nice neighborhood, you live in the bad neighborhood. You go to Lakewood, or you go to Sumter High, or you go to LMA, or you go to Wilson Hall.
Right.
It doesn't make a difference. You can love somebody.
That's right.
And that's where, when you read this story, and Jesus says to love your neighbor as yourself, and he gives you this parable of this Samaritan loving somebody. It's the reason it is the Samaritan that stops is because it shows that they can be completely different and still love on each other.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what we forget sometimes. But as we kind of close this up, be mindful of other people and their situation. Just because they're different, you can still love them.
Yep.
And as we go through these things, it says this quote you put in here was probably the best thing. It says, as you read the quote, allow space for people to be human and grace for them to be sinners. And how can we apply that? What does that mean? And how can we apply that to our everyday life? That's probably the best thing you can do, and allow for people, even if they mess up in your eyes, allow the grace to cover their sin.
Yep.
Because I promise you, the older I get, the more I realize that I don't deserve anything the Lord gives me.
That's right.
And I don't deserve half the stuff that my family and my wife and my kids and my friends, the grace that they give me because they love me. I don't deserve that when it gets down to it. I was telling Stacey the other night, we were picking, I said, Neil and Julie are definitely better friends to us than we are to them, because we constantly always have something to do, but they're always willing to, whatever we can. If we can't hardly make time with them because all the stuff we going, if we call them 10 minutes before we got a free minute, they're like, yeah, we'll come hang out, whatever, that kind of thing. But we don't deserve that sometimes. But people will love on you, and people will do things for you out of love, because they see in you good things. So see in others good things that you can love back.
That's
with
right.
them.
That's exactly right. And that's what it is. I look at my life and the path that I took. And before we even started, I was watching one of my cousins pastor. He pastors a church in Jacksonville, Florida, and was watching him a little bit and just put down there, "I love you, cuz." And we got a little group text with my cousins kind of thing. And it was just one of those of who would have thought that we would have been, because this was my cousin that, we were at the White Snake concerts, the Kiss concerts, the Crocus. We saw Ozzy like 5 times in concert, just that kind of thing. And now we're here. And I look back, and I mean, a lot of stupid stuff, a lot of illegal stuff, a lot of stuff that we did. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, man, there were some adults in my life that showed a lot of grace and love that I know should not have been given to me.
Yeah.
And it was. And in return, makes me love and do what I do.
That's right.
And I think sometimes we expect people to be held to a different standard than what we're even holding ourselves to. And I know sometimes I'll get wrapped up in that. Man, you're better than that.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And they are. But the voice of the enemy is so loud about you're not worthy, you're not loved, you're not, and we've got to combat that somehow. And not by doing the same thing.
That's right.
To just show them, look, this is a place here, you're going to mess up. We all mess up. Truth be told, none of us in here are perfect, not a single one. From the senior pastor all the way down to the youngest one in the nursery. It's just the way it works. And we've got to do our part to like I said, this was one of the best quotes that I had found. Allow space for people to be human and grace for them to be sinners. How do we apply that? We love them the way we want to be loved.
That's right.
It's just that simple.
Yeah, but seriously, as we close up, we get this thing going. Wednesday night, continuing the same series of cool cultural Christianity, goes right along with what we're talking about here on Sunday night. So make sure you guys are in here Wednesday night, or watching, or go back and watch it, or go back and watch this, or if you're watching later, maybe after Wednesday, go back and watch Wednesday night service as well. Keep up with social media.
Yes.
I promise you guys are going to want to see some things that are coming down the pipe.
Yeah. I know y'all don't like Facebook. I get it.
Yeah.
But get on and look. That's the easiest place for me to reach your parents and you. I get it. You don't want TikTok, whatever. I don't know what's out there right now.
Right. I don't know.
I can't keep up anymore. But make sure you are looking at Facebook for the announcements parts.
That's right. You got to get on there
and spend your day. I get it.
But Facebook, Instagram, I know we can. Those are the easiest ones that we can
Right.
get access to multiple people to. Keep up with your parents. If you don't want to get on, tell your parents to keep an eye out and that kind
Right.
of stuff. Just keep up with everything. Wednesday night, Sunday mornings. Let's all try to be here when we can. But make sure you guys are just loving on each other.
Yep. And y'all love on Emma. Big shout out. She won female vocal solo for the state of South Carolina Church of God Teen Talent. She knocked that thing out of the water. And she also won for drawing
and painting too, I think.
Yes, that's what it was. Drawing and painting.
Yeah, she helps out with a little art class that my daughter does, and she's very talented. If you don't know her, but go on YouTube, go on the church's Facebook page. I think they shared it. Her singing, it's amazing. Y'all are blessed with her on Wednesday nights too.
Yeah.
But but love on everybody. Let's really strive this week to identify some people that they can use some loving on.
That's right.
So going back to school, there's going to be a lot of kids that didn't have it as good as you. Even if you had it bad, there's going to be a lot that didn't have it as good as
That's
you
right.
while you were off for 6 months or whatever it turned out to be. So there's going to be some kids struggling. There's already kids struggling, but you're going to be able to reach some kids that are struggling. So let's give a lot of grace and love to some people this week as we can.
That's right.
But keep up with us. You got our numbers are on the screen. If you ever need anything from me or Neil or Jimmy, I promise you we're here for you.
That's right.
But anything we can do to help you, let us know. But Neil, if you want to close us in prayer, we'll get out
I
of here
will.
tonight.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for your love, your grace, and your mercy that's been applied to our lives. Lord, the times we've abused that, the times that we've taken it for granted, and the times that we've basically just tried you. Lord, I pray that you would help us to not be, first of all, like the church guy that stood up to test Jesus, thinking we're the expert. Then, God, I pray that you'd help us to not be like the priest, that we overlook those that are in need, or the Levite, but, God, to even love our enemies. What a testament to the Samaritan. God, I pray that you would help us to identify those that you've placed in our walk of life that need help, that need a maybe just need someone to stop and just whisper a prayer with them. God, someone who is there that we just need to see. Help us to be observant spiritually to those around us that are in need. Lord, we thank you because someone did that for us. Lord, I pray that you would help us to allow the space for people to be human and grace for them to be sinners. Lord, we love you. We thank you for all things. It's in your name we live and we pray. Amen.